Good evening, folks, and welcome to the 6 o'clock news on SBYnews.com. This is our special edition where we're interviewing the different candidates throughout the state of Maryland. Today with me, I have Mr. Chris Robinson.
Thank you, Joe. It's nice
Welcome
to be here.
aboard.
Thank you very much.
You're running for state delegate, right?
No, state senate.
Senate. I'm looking at the wrong thing here. I ain't like that.
Yeah, you must be looking at my opponent.
Why are you running for state senate?
Joe, 2 years ago I ran for Congress. And the first district, which includes the entire Eastern Shore, from Somerset and Worcester County up to Cecil, and then covers Anne Arundel, Baltimore County, and parts of Baltimore and Harvard County, taught me a lot about the values of the Eastern Shore values that were so important to people. And the issues in the federal race are, they're very significant. The healthcare issues, the war in Iraq, energy independence. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized that what was really important to me was being in a position where I could help preserve the quality of life on the Eastern Shore. And I believe that as a senator, that would be I could be in the best position to do that. It would be better to be in that position than the federal government. And you look at what's going on in the federal government, to me, they're out of control. And the real issues that are going to have to be decided are going to be decided at the state level.
Okay. Why should the citizens vote for you over your opponents?
My opponents in the primary? Well, I think because having practiced law on the Eastern Shore in Cambridge for the last 15 years, and prior to that, I worked for the Democratic congressman who represented Maryland's 1st District throughout the 1980s for 10 years. And during that time, I spent time with watermen and farmers and worked with people in all walks of life on the Eastern Shore. And I have a very good feeling for what is important. And when I read what my opponents were saying about the races, things like thinking out of the box and 3-point plans and 7-point plans, I just thought none of them was really sensitive to the core issue that I heard about when I ran for Congress over and over again, and that was, are you from the shore? Yes, that's important, because we want someone who understands the shore. And I don't think you understand the shore, and I think I have a very good feel for the shore because of the people I've worked with over the last 30 years in politics, especially people like Senator Fred Malkus, who used to represent the 37th District. He'd been in the Senate for, I think, more than 30 years. And I spent so many evenings at his house with him and Maggie talking about issues that were important and getting advice from him on matters that we were dealing with in Washington when I worked for the congressman that represented this district. So I think I have a very good feel for what is important to the people in the 1st District. And to the people on the Middle Shore, and I think I can do a good job to help them.
Good. Under the current administration, Maryland taxpayers received the largest tax increase in history. How do you believe that the governor and the legislature should attack Maryland's current fiscal situation?
Number one, I opposed those tax increases, although I was not an elected official. I was disappointed that our state was taking that position. That is, it was a position completely different from the position taken in the Commonwealth of Virginia. And I watched both of them carefully, and in Virginia, they cut spending 4 years ago. In Maryland, we increased taxes. And I thought that was wrong. I thought we should have looked at cutting, if we have to balance the budget, and we do have to balance the budget, we have a constitutional amendment that requires a balanced budget, we should be balancing our budget anyway, but I think we need to look at cutting spending. And the future is going to be even more difficult. A lot of the stimulus money that came down from the federal government has allowed states to protect themselves from having to make some really tough decisions. And I think some very tough decisions are going to have to be made. And so I think that before we talk about raising any taxes, we shouldn't just talk about spending cuts. We've got to make some spending cuts. We've got to be serious about that. And I think that we had some high growth periods in the 90s with the high-tech boom and the real estate boom, and governments had money to spend, and elected officials felt happy to make promises, and I think we've got to make some tough decisions about changing that.
Okay. If elected, will you support the repeal of the sales tax increase? If so, how would you pay for it?
I would have, I don't know that I would support a repeal of that. I would, but going forward, I would not want any more tax increases at this point. I don't think that, I think that people, I hope people in all walks of, for the most part, agree that there's a point where we cannot just say, cut taxes all the time. You can't cut, you're not gonna just, I think President Reagan had it right back in the early 80s. And I learned a lot from President Reagan's presidency. He had a tax cut program when he came in, when he won in 1980, and he had a spending reduction plan, and he presented both of them to Congress. And it was the best thing for the country then. But I think people have gotten, some people, in the extreme parts of the Republican Party, I think, and maybe the Tea Party too, they have got to the point where you just cut taxes, end of story.
Mm-hmm.
There's no talk about anything else, cut taxes. Well, I just don't think you can cut taxes and not talk about other things. Because
Okay.
you can't just cut the bottom out. But I'm not for increasing taxes, but I don't think governments can responsibly serve the people by just talking about cutting taxes.
Okay. Under the current administration, we've seen great effort by the state to force Wycomico County to strip farmers of their property rights by taking away many of their development rights. Do you support this? If not, will you commit, if elected, to support legislation to get the state government out of local planning decisions and, if need be, eliminate the Maryland Department of Planning?
I'd have to look very carefully at that. You know, in my discussions with people all over the district and all over the Eastern Shore, I have heard one clear message, and that is preserve the quality of life on the Eastern Shore.
Mm-hmm.
And so the question then becomes, well, what's the quality of life on the Eastern Shore? And I think that when you drive through places like Talbot County and Dorchester County, Caroline County,
Mm-hmm.
which is, it's almost all farming.
Mm-hmm.
You go down these narrow roads, these back roads, and the roads, they're just endless roads. And Wycomico too, it's the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
Farming is number one. That's what drives our economy
Mm-hmm.
on the shore, and that is part and parcel of what is the quality of life of the Eastern Shore. And so, you know, how do you balance those goals between development and preserving the quality of life? And that's probably, I would say without a question, that's the most important issue facing the Middle Shore and the Lower Shore.
Okay, great. In your opinion, what are the greatest challenges facing the Lower Shore, and how do you believe that you can help solve those problems if elected?
You know, I just actually said what I think is the greatest challenge,
Yeah.
and that is balancing the need for economic development and growth with preserving the quality of life on the Eastern Shore. You know, about when I worked on Capitol Hill and I helped draft the legislation to clean up the Chesapeake Bay, which was an amendment to the Clean Water Act back in 1984, we had a very smart fellow on our staff, and I was chief of staff to Congressman Dyson, and I said, Charlie, go back to the books, talk to everybody, what do we do next? He came back to me and said, Chris, the biggest thing is growth, people moving to the shore. And I thought, well, then what are we going to do about that? People are going to come to the shore. But I think one of the big things that we learned, I think if you travel to the Western Shore, you see what's happened out there.
Mm-hmm.
It's just complete sprawl. And a lot of people who come to the shore, they want to bring the same thing with them. They want the wide roads, they want asphalt, they want shopping centers, and that is going to ruin the shore.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to solve the problems like budgetary problems, healthcare problems, education, but if we neglect if we are not ever mindful and vigilant about protecting the quality of life on the shore, we're going to lose it.
I agree with you.
And that's, to me, the most important issue facing the people of District 37.
Well, you make excellent points. Chris, I can't thank you enough for coming in. We appreciate you running again and standing up for what you believe in. Folks, we appreciate you coming in. Thank you very much, Chris. We'll see you again tomorrow night. Take care.